Harlington Open Prison, a product of our enlightened times. A prison without walls. Oh, dear me, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there. The P10 Nissan Primera, built in Sunderland, with multi-link rear suspension. Does anyone remember it anymore? Is it any good? Should you care? Why, let's find out, shall we? Nissan, hey!
Here we are with anchors tying us to what we'll call home, even if the sight of it has not yet touched our eyes. And here we are. Here we are with anchors tying us to what we'll call home, even if the sight of it is not yet.
So welcome to another retro tweed jacket review. We're in the Midlands again on this rather soggy day, so apologies if the quality of filming isn't quite as it would usually be, but we've got this amazing 1990 Nissan Primera P10 1.6 LSX, which has been provided once again by my friend James Coleman. So thanks, James. Thames.
FYI, the filming's always good.
The engines available in the first generation Nissan Primera were a 1.6 carburettor fed engine, like this one, which later got fuel injection, a 1.8 litre with fuel injection, single point, and then later multi-point, and then a 2 litre available in two power outputs, 115 and 150 horsepower in the EZX or the EGT. Despite having a carburettor, this 1.6 feels pretty lively, and although it's only got 90 horsepower, this car's so light that you can make a very nice clean getaway from the lights. The trim levels available in the P10 Nissan Primera were L, SX, LSX, GSX, and EZX or EGT. This is the LSX, and you get a nice manual sunroof, 4 electric windows, power steering, and central locking. There's no driver's airbag or electric mirrors on this car, although those were available later on. One of the reasons this car feels so modern to drive, even though it's 29 years old, is because it's got rear multi-link suspension and the spring set is quite firm, which is how modern cars generally are set up. Also, it's got this lovely short throw 5-speed manual gearbox, very similar to what like a 1980s Honda would be. And this is a very, very engaging car to drive. I love it. The feeling of being in one of these cars, particularly with this sunroof equipped model, is lots of light airiness. This sort of blue material on the dashboard and on the doors is very typical of Japanese cars of the 1990s. But it does feel a lot lighter and a lot brighter in here than most modern cars. And again, I quite like it. Another thing that marks this car out as being from the early 1990s is that the base model did not even come with power steering. So carburettor engine, no power steering. Now this one does have power steering, and I'm really grateful it does, but it takes a little bit of feel out of the steering. Compared with a more modern car that has electric power steering, this is amazingly communicative. The handling's very responsive, and you can feel what the car's doing. Although compared with something like a Granada Mark II, it does feel a little bit on the light side. Overall, this is a really, really lovely car to drive. The ride's a little firm, but that's okay because it feels really sporty. One of the bad things about buying a P10 Primera is the fact that the diesel option, which I can't talk about, is one of the worst diesels ever put into a passenger car. This car is so much like a modern car that I keep forgetting that there's no driver's airbag, no anti-lock brakes, and no ESP. So I've just been reminded by James just to slow down a little bit, because although this is a lot of fun, this car does have its limits. And in the condition it's in, I wouldn't want to prang it. So when James bought this car, it had done something like 75,000 miles from new, and it was a one-owner car. And he spent the last few months rebuilding the suspension, putting new brakes in it, and then putting a new clutch in it, and lots of other modifications. And if you see like under the engine bay, the car is so clean, and also there's just no rust on it. And it's an absolute testament to its owner and also the mechanical skills of Mr. Coleman. The predecessor to the Primera was the Nissan Bluebird, also known as the Stanza or the Ouster, depending on what part of the world you're in. And that was the first car made at Nissan's Sunderland plant. This was the second one, and it's completely different. The engine is kind of similar, but not exactly the same. The body is a completely new design. The suspension's multi-link in the rear, so it's totally different in terms of the handling. And it just feels much, much, much more modern. I really can see why Ford, when they were designing the Mondeo to replace the Sierra, thought this was one of the best cars in its class and was the benchmark at the time. This car, as far as we know, is the earliest surviving Primera from Sunderland. It's number 80 off a production line. Its first owner was a dealer from London called Stanley Ironside, and you'll see that on the original number plates that are still on this car. And he owned it right up until last year, and he used it as a demonstrator in his dealership and then just kept it. Absolutely incredible.
And here we are with anchors tying us to what we'll call home, even if the side of it is not.
This is a really lovely car to drive, and it feels really modern. I can't believe this car is almost 30 years old. Anyway, let's have a look at the more practical side. I'll pop the boot with this lever, and we'll go and take a look. If you come round to the boot and open this up, it's got 480 litres of space, which for a car from the early 1990s is really impressive. Also, another thing which belies the age of the car, we've got a full-size spare wheel in there and all the tools. Excellent. The jack's kept in this compartment at the side, which is really handy. I doubt that's ever been used. This lovely blue colour comes all the way through the trim, and there's even a little strip at the top of here which protects the paintwork when you slam the boot shut. Very practical. One of the things that you'll notice about this car is, in some ways, it's a work in progress. So the fabric on the door cards is a bit loose, pedaling's a bit low, but if I sit behind my own driving position, I'm 5'11". I've got adequate knee room. Headroom's okay as well. It's quite a spacious car for something of this era. The rear seats do split and fold, although I think this side's broken, so I can't show you that. I like this nice plush sort of velour fabric. It's very comfortable. This being the LSX, you do get electric rear windows, and you do get, I presume, what was an ashtray back in 1990. But there's not too much else to talk about back here. So if we move to the front, when Ford were building the new Mondeo in the early 90s, they actually used the Primera as kind of like a benchmark. So this is actually a really nice car to drive, and it does feel like a driver's car. The seat position is excellent, and the gearbox is lovely. It's in an ideal position just here, very short throw on it too. And this being the sort of mid-range model, you even get this lovely cassette player. In terms of the practical side of things, the glove box, yeah, that's massive. It's big enough for all the secret mission documents you could ever want. These door pockets are quite large, and there's even more storage for your tapes in here, and just there by the heater controls. Something that dates this particular car is the fact that although this is the mid-trim spec, there is no rev counter at all. You get a nice clock to tell you if you're late or not, for picking up somebody from the kebab shop, but there is no rev counter. So if you want to do sporty driving, you're going to have to go for something like the EGT, which has the 2-litre engine with 150 horsepower. For a car from the early 1990s, visibility in this car is actually a bit restricted. There's very thick rear pillars. I don't think any Primera of the P10 generation had parking sensors, which is a bit of a shame. And these pillars, they look quite thin now, but I think in the early 90s they would have been considered to quite thick actually. So it's not the easiest car to see out of, but if you're used to modern cars, you probably won't have any problems at all. Unlike in the former model that Nissan had, the Bluebird, the stalks are the right way around for most people. The indicators are on the left and the wipers are on the right. The instruments themselves are very clear to read, although, you know, I do miss the Rev Counter. And the heater controls and these ones for the heated rear window and the fog lights and the hazard lights are pretty much where you would expect them to be on a modern car, and everything feels built to last. If I pull out the cassette that's in the player, it's got some very appropriate music, and I can just put it into this very handy cassette storage unit just there. Lovely. Right then, what do I think of the P10 Nissan Primera? It's a real shame that most of these went to the banger track or ended up as minicabs, because this is actually a fantastic car. Sure, it looks really conservative, and you know, this was really like a pattern for cars that followed it. But if you can get hold of one of these, and you know, you can get MOT examples less than £500, I would definitely consider it if you need a cheap runaround. You might even have some fun at the same time. Oh gosh, dear me. Excuse me. Every government has its secret service. America has the CIA, French the Deuxième Bureau, and England MI6. And NATO, that's when they call on me if it's a dirty job or someone like me. My name is Jake. John Drake.
Yeah, Nissan Primera, very good car, and they deserve the title of completely and exactly average, because that's what they are. Very reliable, very rarely to go wrong. Parts are absolutely excellent value and plentiful. There are two major issues with them, one being rust, particularly in the rear end, like the backs of the sills and the wheel arches, and the fuel filler necks tend to rust out on the early carburetor versions like this one.
Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. My name is Joseph Lloyd. I'm an independent vehicle consultant. I find cars for people. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to do that. Don't forget to like this video and to leave a comment below. If you wish me to source a car for you, I'd love to do that. My website is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. Please use the Contact Me page on my website to get in touch. I've got a Facebook page as well. It's facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you. Oh, I haven't got the key. No! Cut. Cut. This is Mr. Frank, the grumpy cameraman. Okay, right. Okay, keys are in. Keys are in. Right, let's go again.
Okay.
Don't be corpse, Mr. Frank.
Come on.
Okay, right. Okay, were you ready?
Yeah.
Hello, Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV.
I quite like those Mitsubishis.
Do you?
The shape of them, some of them anyway. The hybrids.
Yeah. They've been very popular because the government had a plug-in car grant for those, and they've got rid of that now. Thanks, government. Government.